So it's Thursday of my last week of June vulnerability video blog series. And confession, I did not record a video yesterday on Wednesday. So I was the whole purpose of this was to connect. The whole purpose of this was to challenge myself to show up every day for you and for myself. Yesterday did not happen. And this morning got up and almost didn't record this video because I felt so bad that I hadn't recorded yesterday's video. And I think in part because I have no excuse for why I didn't record yesterday's video. I had time. I had opportunity. I just didn't do it. And I even had a topic to talk about. So I really had no excuse. This happens a lot to me. At the end of the day, I don't get something done. And when I realize that I don't have an excuse for why I didn't get it done, and in many cases I do have an excuse, but I don't think it's a good excuse. Excuse me. I get really frustrated with myself. I get really angry and I get really ashamed. And as soon as we start feeling shame and vulnerability and all of those feelings around shame, guilt, we go in on ourselves and we start to hide. I say we, I should say me, because not everyone's like this. I think a lot of people are like this, but not everyone's like this. But I'm like this. So I feel ashamed. I feel guilty. I feel bad. And my instinct is to hide. And so in large part, I'm showing up today to prove to myself that it's okay, which is the advice that I give and the support that I give to everyone else. Like, it's okay if you didn't get it done. Like, you can beat yourself up, but let's just figure out why and let it go. I give that advice, and I still struggle with it internally. So in large part, I'm showing up today to prove to myself that that I don't have to hide. And the other large part of showing up is to show you that I put my actions where my mouth is, that I practice what I preach. That's the expression I was looking for. And that despite my shame, despite feeling bad, despite my guilt, because I didn't show up and because I feel like I let myself down by not sticking with the challenge every single day, I can hit the reset button and I can restart today. And yesterday was yesterday. And one of the things that actually happened yesterday is that I was talking with my coach, and we were talking about, well, she called me on the fact that I have a lot of excuses. I come up with excuses all the time. And then I beat myself up for those excuses, or I try and analyze those excuses. But it's that process, that tornado of, I use that term tornado a lot because that's literally what's going on in my head. That tornado of coming up with the excuse and trying to convince myself that it's not a good enough excuse, or that it's a good enough excuse, that stops me from acting. And keeps me in that cycle of the inner critic telling me that I'm not good enough. So I'm going to practice what I preach and call myself on it, be honest about it, be vulnerable about it. And what she encouraged me to do was to challenge myself to actually call myself out on my excuses at the beginning of the day. So again, like, those excuses are going to come up. It's part of my makeup. It's a pattern of behavior that I've established. And it's not going to disappear just because I want to. So to acknowledge that that's a pattern that I have. And she challenged me every single day to wake up, and when I get to my desk, when I'm going to start working, to say, all right, Marissa, like, what excuses are you going to come up with today? And then to think about those, like, to actually analyze and those excuses and whether or not I truly believe them, and whether and what and my why. Like, why should I hear those excuses, know that those excuses exist, and still do the work or the things that I need to do? And so I started today, and two big things came up for me, two excuses. One was that despite the fact that three, I guess. The first one being like, well, I didn't do it yesterday, so I feel bad. That was the first excuse. I feel bad. I shouldn't do it. I didn't do it yesterday. I let everybody down. The second one, again, around sort of mindset stuff and things I can control, is that despite the fact that I had sort of come up with a topic that I wanted to talk about, that topic didn't feel as relevant to me in the moment. And I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to say and what I was going to talk about. And so I was going to have to sit down and plan that. And that was going to take away from the other things I needed to do. And so it was going to take longer than the time I had set aside to record the video and to post it and all that. So therefore, I shouldn't even get started because it was going to take longer than the time I had. And then the third, bigger one, so those were excuses that I was very clear that those were just, I didn't truly believe those things. It was just excuses that I was making. The third excuse that I had that feels really real is that there's a lot of shit, a lot of stuff going on in the world right now. A lot of things that happened yesterday in the United States, Supreme Court rulings that were handed down that made me and a whole lot of other people feel powerless. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are happy about them. I just happen to not be one of them. And I know a lot of people who are also not happy with the rulings. And it feels like things are going backwards. And it feels like, I've said this before, the stories that I've heard from my grandmother about Belgium in the 1930s and 40s, up until 1940 when they left, a lot of the same rhetoric, a lot of the same phrases are being thrown around and being used, and it feels really scary. And so this excuse that I had was, why should I make an effort to create change or to fight, or when I'm only one voice and it's a small voice and I'm far away from the United States and I don't even really know what to say. And the people that I would be speaking to, the way that I can use my voice now today by writing to my Congress people, like, those people can choose whether or not to listen. I don't have control over their actions. So again, the excuse being, why grow my business? Why do things that to make my life better when there are so many things going on that are making other people's lives not good? And that feels really heavy for me. And I've had this conversation before. I've had this conversation with other people. Maybe you feel the same way. At the end of the day, I know that my grandmother and grandfather and their brothers and sisters who were, I'm sure, had the same thoughts, like, what's the point? Also had the thoughts of, this is the way it is, and I can't control everything, but I also can't sit still. So I'm going to keep fighting because that's what we have to do. But I'm not going to spend every single minute of my day not helping the people who need my help and want my help, and who, I don't know, I keep coming back to that thought, like, change one person, change the world, right? Like, if I can help one person feel better about themselves, feel less guilty or ashamed, or more resilient to feelings of guilty and shame, because those feelings are going to come up, but to be able to hear those feelings of guilt and shame that they're experiencing and not get sucked up in the tornado to such an extent that they stay in bed all day long, or they collapse inside themselves and isolate.